Okay, so I think this is the kind of episode that I've been waiting for as we get into the penultimate episode of the English, where I know some people don't really like this, and I can get why, but I do know that there are times when you're like structuring a story where somebody could be really, really built up as like this big sort of antagonistic threat or whatever, and you think it's going to be like, the last sort of big bad obstacle or whatever, and you're building up something really big, and there could be a subversion with this where this person is just built up to build up another character, like to establish where another character is. So say talk about how we've got this whole they had this whole introduction to Black-Eyed Mog, which, despite having the appearance of, like, a little old woman or whatever, once we saw the eyelidless eyes, there was something sort of, something like otherworldly evil, just kind of radiating off of this person. And it felt like we were getting build up to, like, one of our big giant villains, which is kind of something this show's been doing consistently. Like, go all the way back to Kieran Hines in the first episode. And so we build up this character by I keep saying build up. They've only shown her like once or maybe twice, and otherwise she's been mentioned in dialogue here and there. But she made such an impression, it felt like a shitload of build up, and like we were gonna have one of our like ultimate villains. And sure enough, she's introduced back into the story. We get this whole opening scene building up how she and Eli are going to cross paths and how this could get him back into the good graces of Kills on Water. And it's going to be this whole thing. They set up the whole thing. It reminds me of the scene in the first Kill Bill after Uma Thurman and Vivica A. Fox have their fight, and then they build up, oh, we're going to have this massive fight at like midnight on a baseball field, and it's going to be amazing. And then she just kills her right away, and that never happens. I feel like they kind of did that sort of thing here, and the fact that it's to basically build up where Cornelia is right now is amazing, because we get Black-Eyed Mog's full appearance now, the eyes as well as the scalp, and I feel like as this is being gradually revealed, I'm looking at like a sleep paralysis demon. And it's petrifying. And I love that every time we cut to Cornelia, or every time Cornelia speaks, she's just not intimidated at all. This is just like one nightmarish image in the long line of nightmarish things that have happened to her since the story started. This is just another thing, and it's something that she's already got under control, because we don't realize for most of this scene that she's already got her gun out under the table, and this is going to be over very quickly. And so I can just imagine people feeling like sort of blue-balled in a way with this character, where it's like, oh, there was just so much build-up, and then it's like, well, that was it? But yeah, I can get behind the fact that this put Cornelia in a completely different place, because we've been seeing it kind of go on and on, how she's getting, tougher and more stone-faced as she goes through this, but I feel like this was kind of the turning point. Like, that was Black-Eyed Mog's essentially whole purpose, was just to get Cornelia to this point, and was otherwise rather inconsequential when we're looking at the big picture. So, and like I said, just the complete lack of intimidation, and then just ending that whole thing like that. And the confrontation she has outside also, where she threatens to shoot the dude's balls off, is, yeah, we're in like total sort of badass Avenger territory. And then she comes riding in as Eli's savior. This is the moment we kind of knew we were coming to. It's just a matter of how we were going to get there, because what Blunt has done so brilliantly up to this point is that when we see Cornelia in some of the earlier scenes, this scene felt so far away. But now it actually feels like we've gotten here pretty gradually. There's a lot of stuff. I guess if there's one thing that's off-putting about this show, it's how much seems to be happening off-screen, story-wise. But I still feel like these scenes are still hitting enough, and you still feel the impact enough when they get there. That it does feel like we've gone from somewhere very distant to now, and like how now seemed very distant to then, all of that. So, in the how she even has this dialogue later about how she basically had her fearlessness is basically in place of hope, because hope is gone, hope is dead, because she's been brought to such a dark place at this point. Now, what's really interesting about this is the way the show and the character are balanced, because yeah, we have reached, like sort of badass Avenger territory with this character now, but it is kind of acting a bit in reverse of what you would typically see. Where it's like, once we would reach this point, typically that would just be what the character is from now on. But the great thing about that being the beginning of the episode is that we still get to see the more vulnerable side of the character as it goes on, where it's like it really sets her up as human, to play up that she can be like, the ultimate savior, but at the end of the day, she's still this person. This person that's just been completely wrung of her emotions, and is in this really helpless place, and how he has this whole monologue about how it's interesting to see, like, almost the personalities reverse now, where Eli's like the optimist, and he's like, oh yeah, you're gonna find home, everything's gonna be great, he's like smiling and everything, and she's just like, no, home doesn't exist anymore, like, everything is gone, there's no, and the way she says, like, there absolutely won't, those words absolutely won't be a way to find home again. And the whole monologue about how when she was at the estate, and how the difference of being at the estate when she was a little girl versus as a mother with her child, and how her life has already been going through all these changes, and now this is like a whole new set of changes that she could have never possibly imagined. And the way they balance that with like her sort of action hero quality with this, and like I said, putting this after the fact, is a way, because we've seen Blunt tackle both these territories, like the big action hero, and this very vulnerable, broken person, and it's like to be able to see those things put together. I guess the closest of seeing these things merged in one performance would have been Edge of Tomorrow, I guess. Though the emotion that she was having in Edge of Tomorrow is completely different from what this is. And it's almost like, ironically enough, it's almost like she's slowly becoming Alejandro from Sicario. in this really sort of unexpected way, where she starts off as one thing and now she's just this sort of vengeful person. But the thing is this character is clear. We don't want this. We talked about this in earlier episodes. We don't want this character to completely turn. We don't want the character to go the Alejandro direction. So having these moments of humanity that are still in here, but obviously this kind of reaches a peak in this moment where this moment that I feel like could be interpreted in a number of ways. Where she has this sweeping romantic moment. It's like a scene out of like one of the romantic epics from the 60s or something, like Dr. Zhivago or something. And they have this kiss, but then she realizes that I can't do this, and she runs off and basically bathes herself in dirt. Like I said, I imagine there's multiple ways to interpret this. The thing that came to mind for me, which could be way off, I don't know, is there's that whole, it's a very morbid thought, but it's one that I've had many times. Looking, like, when you imagine, like, usually it's when somebody's lost, like, a partner, or, like, a husband or a wife or something. And in this case, her child. You think about this person having to move on with their life and, like, find new life after a person they loved is gone. And this morbid thought is, while this person is out there still living, finding new love, finding new moments and memories, this person that they love, they were supposed to spend the rest of their lives with, is, like, in the ground, like, in the dirt. And like I said, it's a really morbid, depressing thought, and it's something that could keep you from continuing to live your life without this person. So I was taking it in this maybe stretch of a way of her reminding herself where her former happiness is now. And how she could be off, kissing Eli and living her best life, but she comes back to remind herself of everything she once loved is in the dirt now. And so to kind of put herself in that place and to prevent herself from living any further. And that's another thing also. She did say earlier also that she feels already dead. So it could also be a reminder to herself that she feels like she's dead at this point and she's essentially burying herself. As far as it being like this sort of living burial thing, though, I did find it interesting that it is... She applies it to herself in like a bathing sort of manner, so there's... like I said, it feels like it can be interpreted in a number of ways, but that's pretty much the way that I took it. And there's also the whole idea of one of the few articles of clothing that she leaves on is they have this whole talk about her gloves. And I just find that kind of funny that the character refuses to take her gloves off, because I'm pretty sure I heard a blunt interview a while back where she said, it might have been during Mary Poppins, since in Mary Poppins she wears gloves a lot also, that she actually hates wearing gloves in real life, like she hates the feel of it or something. So it's just kind of funny in an ironic way to me that she's playing a character that refuses to take her gloves off. It's like Roller Girl with the skates and Boogie. It's essentially just with gloves. But on top of that, we do have other badass moments from other characters here. Mrs. Myers has a great moment where where she gets very emotionless, towards her dead husband, and there's the whole thing of, why does she care more? Stephen Ray asked her why she cares more about her cattle than her husband, and that line of, a steer broke my arm once and it was an accident. So I'm paraphrasing. She delivered it in a much cooler way. So it's still getting characters to leave their mark like that, even with just one scene reminding you of their place in this story, is being done really well also. And then there's when we get to the climax. This episode is a hell of a climax. This whole roller coaster of emotion that happens when they reunite this kid with his mother that Eli knows, and then that brings us back to the whole, past and present and how they're blending into this story. And then, like I said, this roller coaster of emotion gets us to this very dynamic climax, where the title of the episode comes into play. And there's... Yeah, as far as Cornelia sort of winding down throughout the episode, and getting, more and more injured as it goes on, there is... I am curious how it's this going to be... I imagine there's going to be some sort of... almost like a resurrection of sorts, because she already feels like she's dead, and then we see her drop after everything she's gone through in this episode, and the fact that we still have one more episode. And I saw that, as it came up before I stopped it, the final episode is practically feature length. So I'm curious. It does feel like there's been a lot to build up, and there's a lot to tie up. So I'm curious how they do all of that. But I loved how this did feel like it, because you'll notice when you watch a lot of shows, even miniseries, that it's always, you would think the episode before the final episode would just sort of be build up and sort of, laying the groundwork, and then it's the last episode that gets to go crazy. But you'll notice a lot of shows that are in their last seasons, or like I said, miniseries like this, will get really explosive in their next to last episode, and the way that in itself lays the groundwork, where it's not just, oh, we're going to set up that this happens and this happens. There's always some sort of exciting burst right before we go into the last episode, and this sort of very distant shootout was a great way to go about that. So, yeah, she's been through a lot, but I can't wait to see Cornelia get up off the ground and fuck shit up, because we're reaching the end. We gotta see her, fuck up Rafe Spall. We got, I hope. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people that need to go down, and vengeance needs to be served. And Cornelia is definitely at that point now, after we saw in the opening scenes of this episode. So I cannot wait to see that, and to see if she's going to be able to move on and find happiness afterwards, which we also hope for. And she doesn't go completely to the dark side. That would be great also. But regardless of what happens, it's going to be amazing to watch because of Blunt. So that's why we're all here anyway. So I think that's all I really have to say on this episode. So let's check out this juggernaut of a final episode and see where this goes. And until then, I think that's it.